Saving Private Bryan. So this is going to be a discussion, but I wanted to do a preface just by saying, when I say Private Bryan, it's a it's a kind of a one-off on the Saving Private Ryan series and how uh, you had a person. Essentially, the premise that I'm getting at is you had a person that needed to be saved, and they were fighting the same battle. Um, Many times there are people. Uh, there are men in particular that are, I see them as being in the same battle, and I have a lot of empathy for the struggles that they're going through. And I think these struggles need to be addressed more seriously, because the issue is going to get worse. And there is an article that came out, and of course, everyone's talking about the article like it's a something to be monetized, but it's very serious. Talking about how males are extremely lonely now, and how they're not getting any attention, and how they're kind of just you know no one really wants to associate themselves with the bottom 80% of males, and how that's starting to become more relevant in pop culture, and people are utilizing this information as a means of getting money, getting views. um, so that's what this is about. The Private Ryans are the men who don't understand the true nature of females. They don't understand the darker aspects of humanity, and they weren't taught these things. Their mothers, their fathers were kind of, they weren't really honest with them about these things. Maybe they didn't have a father. Maybe their father was an absent father. Maybe he was a man who was not particularly, maybe he wasn't masculine. He didn't feel he could really give his opinion. Maybe he's you can call him a whipped man, a feminine man. That's no better than not having a father. It's probably worse, actually. Um, all right. Well, now we can have the discussion. That was the intro. So I'm hoping my computer can handle at least 15 or 20 minutes. And also, since I am next door to my, right outside of my landlord's place, I'm going to try to be as loud as I need to be, but not too loud. So, um, what I want to discuss is the commodification, how loneliness is starting to become something that the manosphere, you have these articles that come out and they talk about how males are lonely, and how they're not, going out on dates and stuff like that. Sound is good. Good. Glad to hear it. Um, yes, they are. So, what are we going to do about that? Because these men need our help. They're not, um, the rate that men are self deleting is very serious. It's at this point, uh, it needs to be addressed. And one of the things that I put in the description is how male mentors are starting to rise, at least online. They're starting to give out advice, they're starting to help people. Um, Very good. One thing I think we need to get away from is the shaming of men who want female attention. There's nothing wrong with wanting female attention. That's perfectly fine. It's just, in this world, we teach men that in order to be worthy of female attention, they have to acquire a certain amount of resources. And then after a while, then they can have female attention. But what we fail to understand is, by the time that male who was ignored in his teens and 20s gets the female attention in his mid 30s and early 40s, a lot of these men are going to be too bitter to actually want to treat a woman well, which is kind of the equation. We've kind of messed up on that. Um, as a society, we've failed these men. Um, Women have a guaranteed uh, they have a guaranteed pool of men from their teens all the way through their 30s. Men do not have this guarantee, and they're insecure in this particular regard. And I think this is kind of the failing that we've had. Um, we talk about men who don't have uh, access to sex, who don't have access to who can't go out on dates every week and stuff like that, as if these men are less than men. We talk about men, uh, and I do mean incels, either the ones who operate under the title, or the ones who don't operate under the title. Um, Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting affection and wanting a woman to meet your emotional needs. That's you're human. Uh, Many times the manosphere, the red pill community, it makes it seem uh, like wanting these things is somehow bad. Uh, because if you want female attention, then you're one of them, or you're what you're whipped, or you're a simp, right? No, it's just human. Humans want connection. It's the only issue is women. A lot of them are attracted to guys who who are emotionally unavailable, and so the men who go into the equation thinking, "Oh, well, I want a woman," right? A lot of the women they're running into are burnt out emotionally, and so they're having to deal with burnt out women, and this is kind of causing the men who go in to start to develop resentment because they're going in. Uh, their mothers told them women were sugar and spice and everything nice. But then they learned very quickly no, women are very treacherous. Some of them are good. Some of them aren't emotionally burnt out. And, they run into those too. I've run into those. I've talked about it on my channel. I talk about the Nana Shimura archetype, the women, the feminine, sacred feminine heroine. Those are rare. What a lot of guys are running into are women that are they're emotionally, what's the word? A lot of guys are running into women that are emotionally handicapped. They're not even capable of having a long-term relationship. Um, it's kind of sad. I could say that. Um, Anyone who follows my channel, that my the falling out of my relationship with my ex, um, it was me, an emotionally stable person, trying to bring an emotionally unstable person and keep them from shattering the relationship. The more I tried to do that, the worse it got. Now, this is me, a person who at least understands the darker aspects of female nature and even my own nature, even male nature. Um, but in understanding these things, I think it at least made it a little easy to deal with it. But let's consider the males who know nothing about the dark natures of women, who know nothing about the dark aspects of humanity. These men, whenever they get just cast aside uh, by the females they're dealing with, um, these men are going uh, to be honest, this is where the seriousness of this conversation comes in. There's a high likelihood that these men are going to self delete. Um, that's kind of where I want to focus on this conversation, is to kind of talk about ways where in which we can prevent uh, self deletion through. Um, it's very serious, but also one thing I'll say is that I was actually at this point myself. Um, but knowing what I know, I would say what is what kept me away from going that far. I think it's kind of it's weird to me that we don't really seem to be capable of having empathy for men who aren't successful with women. So I've also had a thought. Um, I'm not gonna try to play videos on this, by the way. So just in case anyone's thinking like, maybe we should get some videos up, I'm not gonna do that because the computer I have cannot handle it, and it'll die. Like it'll poop out and die. So I'm not gonna do it. The little processor can barely keep up with what this conversation that we're having. So I was thinking, we talk about a lot of evolutionary psychology in um, this particular part of the internet, as it pertains to men and women. So um, I think women have a license for cruelty when it comes to social interactions with men, prospective partners. Um, and when I say that, I don't mean that we should allow women to be cruel. What I mean is there is a natural bias towards cruelty because the women are the genetic selectors. So their appraisal of men, whenever men are trying to talk to them or hit on them or trying to, shoot their shot, these women see it as their right to harm these men emotionally. This is what I mean. Um, it's not a direct harm; it's very indirect. They see it as their personal right and privilege to uh, emotionally damage a man as much as they possibly can, uh, in order to kind of weed him out. So I guess trying to find like an analogy I could use to describe. Uh, so kind of like, what could I use? I don't really know how to describe it. Really, women are like blacksmiths. They want to see how much pressure they can put the ore under until it'll crack. But they always expect that it will crack. They're never expecting that it'll be successful. Um, they don't want to see men win. The average woman in the West, at least in what we're in right now, whatever you want to call this, if you want to call it this polyamorous society, because we're starting to become more polyamorous, we're moving away from pair bonding, and we're going more towards tournament. Um, but this is so for any incels that do see this video, the reason why you're facing abject loneliness, part of it is because women don't really have self control in this particular paradigm that we're in. They, a lot of them operate like they're purely looking for dopamine. They're dopamine addicts. Um, they're simply trying to get the next high. It's largely a chemical thing. They're trying to find a man who's going to give them the greatest chemical. Uh, like they've developed a certain dependence uh, on certain levels of human interaction, and so the men that they're looking for are men. The reason why the men have to be toxic, which they typically look for toxic men, is because they need a man who can get them past their dependence because they get an influx of men constantly. They have so many options that the little stuff doesn't do it for them anymore. It's kind of like men and watching prawn or corn. Uh, the little stuff doesn't do it for you anymore after a while. Just seeing a woman's skin, just seeing the small stuff, just seeing someone making out and stuff. Eventually, you want to move up to more and more and more. So it's the same thing. Like, this is essentially what women are doing. They're weeding out men based off of their need for chemical highs. And the men who are going to be capable of the greatest highs are going to be men who are the most unpredictable. And this is going to create the largest, um, this is going to create the high for them, the best high. But then it's also going to create the greatest challenge for them, which uh, unfortunately, women in the West nowadays, they don't see they don't see relationships as a serious thing. Um, they see it as they literally see it as a video game, and this is what I need incels to understand. And when I say incels, I'm not saying it in a shaming way. I'm saying that um, any man who can't get sex from a woman um, easily, um, within the week, within the month. Um, women, it's quite a lot. Let me regather my thoughts because I definitely have a lot to say for this conversation. So while I'm gathering my thoughts, I want to say there's a direction I want to go with my channel. A lot of my videos are, there's archetypes that I talk about, and these archetypes are pertaining to men and women. And there's different archetypes. And if you add all the archetypes up and put it into one person, then you kind of get what we have in the modern world. Um, I made this channel to attempt to be honest about the human condition. Um, it was also partly a coping mechanism for my own difficulties in life, but it was also um, kind of part of my own process for moving through phases of anger, phases of understanding. I was always seeking to understand, and that's something I want to say to involuntarily celibate men. Um, One, don't take women serious. Don't. Um, Taking them serious is what causes you deep grief and anger and sadness and stuff like that when you get discarded by them. Um, a lot of times they don't have the same deep yearning that you do for them. And this is the reason I know I sidestepped from what I was saying in the past, but I forgot the point, so I'm going to move on and I'll come back to it. And I'm going to have to start reading these ideas because I want to involve y'all in the discussion as well. I don't want to just monologue. Um, so you can't take women serious, and you have to understand that most of them aren't loving. They're not showing affection as deep as you are for them. They, before they were talking to you, they were with countless men. And again, that dependence I was talking about, where they need to reach a certain high with a certain man, and if they don't, then they just push away, add in, push away, add in, push away. Um, I guess it's a weird thing that they're doing, but a lot of times it takes away their ability to actually show affection uh, to men. Like, they can't really show any real affection whenever they accrue so much numbers, so many bodies. Um, the amount of oxytocin needed to bond with a man actually increases as a result of being with so many men. Um, so that kind of goes along with what I was saying about the chemical thing. These are things that have been studied about humans. They're not just things that I'm just spewing out for fun. Statistically, um, the more partners uh, a person has, uh, the less likely it is for them to be successful in a long term marriage. But then also, what you have to factor in is that you're right. The stuff you're saying about women, about how traditionalism was right in a lot of ways, you're right. Um, there was a study in Scandinavia. There was a Scandinavian study that showed that when women, uh, whenever they get raises, um, they actually, um, whenever they got raises, they were 3 times more likely to divorce their partners. So what does this? What does this show? This shows that the push for equality is a push for male obsolescence. It's not a push for, and it sounds misogynistic, right? Like in the current culture we're in. But the only reason it sounds misogynistic is because the culture, people in this culture are programmed to see males as they're not programmed to see males as authority figures. But the ironic thing is, the women still want men to have the same responsibilities as the men in the 1950s, but they don't want these men to have authority. Um, Rollo Tomasi talks about this, but it's obvious to anyone watching, and a lot of men, they haven't. The reason why I'm speaking like this is because I'm trying to respect my neighbor. By the way, if anyone's wondering, um, that's why I'm not going to give my full resonant voice because I want to respect people who are sleeping, but I also want to use their internet. um, and this is the part. This area has the best internet. So yeah. Anyways, so in the future, I'm gonna start making content that is geared towards helping facilitate, uh, like just giving simple steps and methods that I just things that I try that could help men who are involuntarily celibate and can help them gain clarity in things possibly. Maybe it won't exactly help, but I think men too often we try to set ourselves apart from other men who are of lesser value because we have testosterone so much so compared to women, and our testosterone makes us very status driven. Um, but we need to understand that uh, that person that's self-deleting, that could be your little brother, that could be your cousin, that can be some relative or some best friend, but they don't know. They don't know what's going on. They don't know. They don't know female nature. They don't know, or the true aspects of female nature. They don't know the darker aspects of it, and how. Um, I think I remember what I was talking about in the past. So, women have a license for cruelty. Um, they have a license to be cruel to men, and they see it as their right to be cruel to the point where a man actually dies, or he actually takes his own spark. Let's say that for YouTube's sake. Um, Most women actually see it as a. This is dark what I'm saying, but I'm trying to be honest. At the greatest extreme, a man who takes his own spark is a man, like he actually gives women the greatest, what this this validates a woman on a dark level. It validates her because she has 100% certainty that that man was not good enough for her. Um, he did not pass a genetic fitness test. So the sadness that she would feel from that man is kind of covered by the fact that uh, he failed the genetic fitness and he took himself out of the genetic race. So there is no remorse. Um, as bad as that sounds, yes, that's exactly. I mean, I'm saying these things intuitively, but Ghost Shura, you're pretty much hitting it, and I should probably start looking at these now. That's exactly it. Women see it as their right to push a man to the greatest extremes to where he will take himself out of the world. And the proof in this is simple. There are a lot of social slights that women will utilize against men with impunity. They'll do these things. And I talked about it in my last video, The Scarlet Witch, how women will use words like magic spells. I think TFM said that. I used to watch his videos, and he would say things like women use words like magic spells. But then I look back into my experiences, I'm like, well, they kind of do. They don't ever really say what they mean. And a lot of times they do things purposely, like they get a lot of, I think they get a high off of uh, giving a man hopes of uh, access, but then he doesn't get it. Like maybe she starts flirting or she's laughing and smiling, but then he gets ghosted, right? Women actually get a high off of that. Like it actually makes them feel good. I just wanted to say that. I know it sounds horrible, and I know I'm making women sound bad, but it's not because I am. It's just because they are. Um, there are women who overcome their dark instincts, but I think the women who overcome certain parts of their psyche, the darker parts of their psyche, are women who've faced a lot of darkness in their life, and they've faced a lot of strife and pain, suffering. Um, I talked about those type of women. I talked about women who, uh, the video I did called um, the sacred feminine heroine, and I talk about Nana Shimura and how she was training Toshinori from My Hero Academia. So if you watch these animes and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff you can glean from it just by looking into it, just on a deeper level. Uh, Nana Shimura was his that was part of his psyche that was motivating him to become stronger. Uh, yes, I do. I do say that Ghost Shura. There's a lot. One of the reasons why people like animes is because there's a lot of reflections. There's a deeper reflection from animes in real life, and also animes aren't really afraid to they're not really afraid to go into the deeper parts of our psyche, and that's why they're so interesting to people. You look at American cartoons and stuff like that, other than Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was amazing, but uh, a lot of these other cartoons and television shows we watch, they're they're very scared to go to the darker aspects of things. You look at things like, what is it called? There's this one anime that's really messed up. Forgot what it's called. My brother told me about it. Uh, there's one called Goblin Slayer. It's pretty messed up. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. I'm gonna read these comments now. There's a whole lot of comments. Women don't care about men's problems. Men got to handle it solo. Mm, that is not 100% true. Uh, it's actually more nuanced. I think there's more nuance in that. So women don't realize they care about men's problems, or they don't care about men's problems at first until the man becomes their son, and then they start to care. But then by that time, it's too late. Um, so women do care about men's problems, but they don't care about individual men's problems. They only care about the their kin, which is kind of the downside. It's harder for women to be empathic towards men. It's harder. It's extremely difficult for them to show sympathy for men, just because by nature they rely on us, and so they're actually the more selfish sex. They they have to be more selfish just by nature. Um, Granted, the condition that we're in now, we're relatively safe compared to the primal days. Um, a lot of the traits are unnecessary, but they're still there, and getting rid of the getting rid of those traits, I think is going to be easy. Um, but I got to focus because this is about incels. So uh, one of the weak points in the MGTOW and the red pill community is telling the oh, thank you, Ghost Shura. I appreciate that. So one of the the downsides to MGTOW and red pill is telling the men to ignore women and just work out and stuff like that. Like, yes, it's good. Um, the downside to that is by the time you end up going out and talking to women after becoming what you perceive as high quality enough for these women, you're going to be socially inept, and they're going to walk circles around you. You're going to be hopeless. They're going to see you from a mile away, and they're going to pick you off. I think I think balance is what you have to do, because at the end of the day, the man has to have a toolkit for uh, talking to a woman. Uh, Women don't need that toolkit; they're born with it. That's another thing I want incels to understand, is that, again, you're right. They're born with value, and you're not. It sucks, but uh, here's the beauty in it, though. The fact that you have to get your value, like you have to create it, that aggression, the aggression that it creates, the the creativity, the intelligence that it pulls from you in order to, you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of uh, gifts that comes from being the sex that has to create value. Um, I think seeing it as this dark thing where it's just like, oh, woe is me. I, I, I don't have as much value as a woman, so I'm just gonna tap out. Yeah, I understand the feeling of hopelessness, especially if you've been rejected constantly by women. But some of it is learned helplessness. Um, Here's the other thing. Uh, there's a person who makes content, Rom Wills. I follow his content, and he talks about how some of guys, who are nice or good, some of that is entitlement, where they think they should get a girl because of that. Some of it is, perhaps so. Um, I'm not saying you shouldn't be nice. All right, let me see if I can reel in some of the stuff I'm saying. I'm gonna start looking at some of the content. Sure, yeah, this is rare. No problem, Penguin. This is kind of rare for me to do a stream. but I'm gonna start doing content more often. Most people get more life advice from people who never existed. Anime. What is this? Scorp Thought just did a video. She called it revenge, but it was just interesting. Mm, yes, bullets, very succinct. Women. I'm gonna put it on there just cause. Oh boy, I can't. I can neither confirm nor deny. I actually agree with it. A lot of them are. Definitely want the men to off themselves. I'm glad you're talking about that kind of malevolence. Yeah, I like to talk about things that no one will talk about, uh, but not the word you put in. Just seconds. Okay, so Ghost Shiro was talking about how women want the authority of a man, but not put in the work. It's even darker than that. Um, so women, by their nature, they they utilize emotional attachments. Well, two things. They use sensuality and emotion, like emotional attachment. So they utilize sensuality primarily on the alpha males, um, but then they utilize the emotional attachments on the beta males. Um, and then later, after the sensuality, like it's weird because a lot of people think, oh, if you're alpha male, you can't be taken by the emotional. Actually, alpha males can get taken by the emotional pool as well. They can be controlled to a degree. I guess, I guess it's harder to control them though. I guess is the point, and that's what women are attracted to. But here's the other dark thing about women that incels need to grasp, and will kind of because right now you're thinking I'm not getting affection, I'm not getting love from women, and you're thinking, oh, well, I want, I want what other guys are getting, and I understand the want. I'm not trying to shame you, but here's the thing: once you actually do get your feel, and once you do get to, get the box, once you get that, you're gonna understand why men say, well, it wasn't worth it. Um, then you might get even angrier. um, I'm trying to make a cushion. So uh, I know it's hard to believe in your current state, but once you do get to the point where you are, you're in the gym, or you just have uh, you're better at conversation, you're better at charming a woman. Once you get a couple of them, you're gonna realize, holy hell, like this is a different kind of world. Uh, the dark aspect that I was talking about that I kind of looked over was that about how women want authority. They utilize emotion, like they utilize an emotional attachment that the man gives them in order to get power. They don't they don't view love in the same way that a guy views love. Um, to go further with that, a woman, guys love women automatically. Um, um, the love a guy has for a woman is automatic. Once the guy loves a woman, it's basically it doesn't go away easily. Uh, so I'll use a simple analogy for this is, and I'll probably make a video with the title: "Men love women love men until they don't. Men love women, men love women until they can't." Um, so you'll just have to tell me if you understand that. But essentially, women they love men until they start to have feelings for someone else, or until those feelings that they have for that man wears off, and then they decide that they don't love that man based off of how they feel, and then they shift their feelings to someone else in order to get that same need met. So really, the women are loving the feeling that the man is given, um, whereas the man, he has a deep, profound love for the woman, and his love for her is something that can't really doesn't go away until his own self-preservation becomes important, until his need for sanity and his need for his own safety uh, is the real factor. And when he doesn't, that's really what determines when his love goes away. So the man's love is stronger, it's deeper, it's now here's a caveat to that. The first the first one or two men, I'll give you one or two, I won't okay, the first three men that a woman deals with, she'll be able to love them as much as she could love a man. It's still based off of feeling, but it would still be easier for her to love them, and it wouldn't require as much dopamine. But then after that, oof, all bets are off. But for a man, there's different chemicals involved in the process of love. Vasopressin, for example. Again, y'all, I think about this stuff a lot. Um, but yeah, I'll do a video on it. But again, women love a man until she doesn't. Men love women until they can't, until it's no longer safe. Um, Here's the other dark aspect of things when it comes to love. Um, the love that uh, oftentimes women wait until a guy loves them, but then they usurp the male in order to get power from the male. But uh, I guess that's kind of the issue in modern society. We don't realize how deep the love for a woman, uh, the male's love, goes. Uh, we understand, and we praise, we even mythologize uh, the love that a mother has for a child, uh, without realizing that the same love that she has for that child, which is automatic, which is protective, which involves provision for a creature who has neotness features, which is essentially agape love. The man has that same love for the woman. And when you try to put this in perspective, it actually makes it easy to understand why men oftentimes want to self delete. Uh, After, you know, the woman just like, it could be 2 or 3 years, it could be a decade, it could be 2 decades. And then, the guy, they could be fiancés, they can be married, it could be boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter. The love that a male starts to have for a woman, especially when he commits to a woman, is very different than the one that a woman has. For a lot of their early life, women, they they go from guy to guy, but then they develop a laundry list of things that they need from a guy further and further the more partners they have. Um, Thank you, Gulsher. I will try to make more content. I'm gonna start making as much content as I can, for real. In my usual format. This isn't my usual format. I'll probably do these like once every month, uh, once or twice every month. Um, Important video here, because a lot of these thoughts I've been thinking about for a while. Um, Women don't want to uh, women don't want to be responsible for how deep a man's love actually goes. They see it as something that's perfectly fine to just discard. The issue is the man, his love for a particular woman is the same love that a woman has. It's very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar in depth. It's probably tantamount to the love that a woman has for her child. You know, when guys say she's not your, like, uh, you know, when guys say like, um, she's not yours, it's just your turn, for example. Um, yeah, of course. This is a reason why I'm listening to that car in the background. I think it's a Mustang. Hold on. All right, back. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, a lot of the where was it? So the love. So I'll just try to jump off. So the love that women have for men, or the love that men have for women, is basically the same love that women have for children. It's automatic, and um, at least I can't speak for players. I can't speak for actually even players have the same wiring. Um, Let me change some of the. Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Man is only loved under a condition. So yeah, I watched a video on that, and I want to talk about that. So I'm going to leave that up there. So whenever these men are discarded after they decide that they want to love a woman, um, these um, you get the women leave, and then they paint the guy as a bad guy. They always paint the guy as a bad guy. Oh, he was awful, or he was, he never lived up to my standards. Or, the friends who come in, and then they tell the girl, yeah, he's awful, girl, you need to leave him, he's a narcissist, or he's a psychopath, or something like that. They always have to paint you as a bad person, because then that makes them feel less um, bad for ending the relationship and for causing the issues in the relationship that they're causing. There was a content creator. He talks about how women like bad boys because bad boys make them feel less guilty about being bad people. When I first heard it, I was like, wow, that's amazing. I never thought about that. I was thinking it was just about having an edge and being this attractive person, but I guess uh, there's more to it, which is, uh, it was cool to learn about that. Um, but yeah, this is kind of there's not too much more I need to talk about. This is a lot of the stuff I'm getting into. I'm going to start making small clips about anyway, just with my face off the screen. Then you would see the that thing, which is my usual format. Um, but the so the main point that I want to make for the incels, because a lot of incels they're they're coming into trying to do self development and stuff like that, thinking that they're going to be able to get a woman to love them, care for them, and stuff like that. But you got to think the thing about men is like we don't have as many options. So when we actually do get an option in a woman that actually wants to go with us like long term, a lot of times, what is that like? It's like a race car driver, right? A person who wanted to be a race car driver their whole life, so they pretend like they're in a car. They've been pretending like they're in a race car for what like 9 months, 2 years, 3 years, and then when they finally get a chance, it's like, hey, all right, now you're on the track. It's like you actually get on the track, and you're like, all right, man, there's your car. There, you're on. Like, here's your race. What's gonna happen? That guy's he's basically gonna go balls to the wall, right? He's gonna lay it all out on the line. This is human nature. When we perceive ourselves as not having options and not having the ability to get what we want, when we actually do get that chance, it's it's within our wiring to try our hardest. You want to hear my origin story? Cool, I'll get into that. I don't mind. It's within our um, deepest loins to try our hardest and to go balls to the wall, to go all out, to kind of the you only live once, uh, uh, kind of this warrior mentality. And that is also kind of what leads to you know, the darker aspects of things, why guys end up self deleting, uh, because they're putting so much effort into something, not realizing that the individual sees them as just another number. Okay, he's the fifth guy, or he's the eighth guy, or he's the 10th guy, or the 12th guy, right? So the effort that she's putting in, it's almost like this bitter. It's almost like you're at the DMV and you're trying to get your license. Like, yes, I'm gonna be a driver now. I'm gonna be a person on the road. I'm gonna have my car and stuff like that. But then the person is just looking at you like, oh my god, I hate this person. This is like the 30th person that's come through, right? Like, there's almost a misery to choosing the next person after this lineup of horrible choices that ended terribly. And I think that's part of why a lot of guys are getting poor treatment from women.
You
Uh,
speak English too.
uh, sh-
I know.
so, anyways, that's one of the biggest issues. I already lost my train of thought. I'll tell you my origin story. I don't mind. I lost my train of thought. Passport time. Yep. Until the BB leaves and she's stuck chasing that dopamine high. Yeah, those crazy. Oh boy. Yeah. The psychology terminology. You deserve better. I'm reading some stuff. Side note: no really makes you invisible. Working out can help.
I know.
Uh, yeah. So, yeah, interesting situation there. There's not a lot of, there's not too many more topics I want to go into and talk about regarding this stuff. I will probably do, yeah, it's a long story. I won't get into it. Um, I've been here for a little bit, for a little bit of a length of time, and of course, I don't need to talk about them or anything. Um, I don't remember exactly what I was talking about, but I want to jump off into something. I want to talk about what I'm gonna do in the future streams, and possibly have someone come up, like if they want to join, like just like a have like a small discussion on some of the stuff that I'm talking about. That'd be pretty cool. Just let me know what y'all think. Oh, my origin story. All right. Well, here's the thing. Look, you gotta just be comfortable. You're probably gonna hear uh, some weird song and dance rants from like some drunk in the background. So if you're cool with that, then I'll kind of go through. I was hoping this would be one on one, but yeah, if you're cool with that, we're good. Um, Before I get to my origin story, though, I kind of want to just kind of wrap up the idea of this because I'm going to be doing this. Look, this the whole incel content. I'm going to be doing that more. I'm going to be talking directly to guys who are dealing with this stuff. I'm going to share my experience out in the field, like talking to women, but also just interacting with the world itself. I'm going to share my insights for coping with the more isolated aspects of reality and how I do it and how they can do it, and not just working out and ignoring people because I think that's kind of unrealistic. People actually need people, and we have to honor that because most people, um, if they're alone, they kind of go nuts. That's the reality. All right, but now that I'm done with that, oh, we finally hit the hour mark. The computer's going stable. This is good. No issues there. Oh man. Okay, my origin story. Before I move on, Chris Rock said once, "Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Man is only loved under the condition that he provides." Hold on, let me make sure that door is cracked. Alrighty. So, all right. So I wanted to address this before I go into my origin story, or just it seems like people want to know what my story is, how I came into this community, the red pill community, stuff like that. Um, but before that, I want to address what Ghost Shura talked about with Chris Rock's super secretive but very funny information that's very wise. Um, and how he was saying only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. A man is only loved under the condition that he provides something. Um, so this, um, I think, I think that the what do I think? If I can focus,
Shit.
I think the darker and more truthful aspects of of this is that well, so there's a video, and in the video where Chris Rock actually says this, I looked at the comments, and in the comment section, there are people kind of arguing that no one loves unconditionally, and they were kind of trying to make a case for women in this regard. They're like, no, well, no one loves unconditionally. Even the guy only loves a woman because of her looks. Uh, this is what I think people forget about that. Looks, physical looks, are still native to that woman. They're still connected to who that woman is as a person. The love that a,
Ay,
a
Dios mío, en serio.
the love that a man receives from a woman, uh, this would be based off of what he can provide. Um, this would be based off of what he can provide as um, based off of what he can provide, like outside of who he is, outside of himself, outside of his look, because the man has to bring certain looks too. He has to bring muscularity. He has to bring height. He has to bring that as well. But the only difference is the man's what he brings is is largely external. Uh, okay, well at least yeah,
No.
yeah. I'm guessing y'all can hear him. He's probably having a rough night. It's whatever. Um, but yeah, I have to figure out how to get a place. I'll probably start doing some of this stuff at like Starbucks or something like that, so I don't have any like interruptions or something like that. Just a place that has like good internet. Um, so yeah, the people who were talking in this comment section, they were like, "Well, guys don't love unconditionally either because they like a woman based off of her looks." It's like, well, yeah, but we all like people based off of their looks. But the only difference is guys are seen as nobodies if they're not if they don't have associations outside of themselves. Now, let me give you an example. A guy who is above average in looks can actually be ugly if he doesn't have options. That guy can be a 6, he can be a 7, he can even be an 8. But he's not
Put it back.
if he's
Get
not
another
uh,
person talking.
attractive, if he's not attractive to other women, then he won't be perceived as attractive.
Ay, Dios mío,
And this is
dude.
like
Well, I know what you're saying, but
kid.
just keep doing that. I
Yeah,
apologize.
the I'm looking at what you said. Look will attract you, but not keep you. It's the character and heart. Yeah, but the women in this culture don't really care about character and heart because social media is kind of wiring their brains to look for the same thing. TikTok is actually part of that, but then also creating a lot of issues. I know I said I was going to get into my origin story. I'll do that. But I just wanted to bring up that aspect about unconditional love. Um, Men, their love for women is the closest thing um, that will, like, compared to the woman's love for the man, is the closest thing towards to unconditional love, very similar to the love that a parent has for their child. It is agape love, for lack of a better word. Um, it's a protective, sacrificial love that doesn't require, like, there's a lot of room for error. There's a larger margin for error with women. Um, a lot of guys argue that um, it's easier for a woman to discard a man because she's less forgiving. But the less forgiving aspect of things is that she doesn't actually love the man. She loves what the man, how he makes her feel, and how um, she loves how the man makes her feel. But then also, she always wants to be in that state of, or that state or that feeling. So um, there's another aspect of this. She's selfish in that she sees romance as something that happens to her. She doesn't see romance. The average Western woman grew up thinking that romance was something that comes to her. Right? She's the passive recipient of romantic gestures, and a lot of the movies and stuff that we watch, like, kind of basically it's almost like a narcissistic. I apologize for the noise in the background. I can't really control that at this point. So like the narcissistic aspects of, like the Disney princess fantasy, things like that. Um, this is something that um, is deeply ingrained in a lot of women, and it's not gonna go away all that easy. I'll just say that. It's a uphill battle, but the unforgiving nature of a woman's love is one of the reasons why incels and just more inexperienced men shouldn't ever take women seriously. You can't. You can't take a creature serious who can't take you serious. It'll cause you deep pain, deep sadness, and then it'll make you want to self delete. But the interesting thing is, when you don't take them serious, then
But you're not
then
God.
the
You're
the
not God.
um, then the relationship becomes
You're not God.
oh my god, uh,
You're not God.
guys, look, I'm
Don't
sorry,
try to be God.
I can't. I can't control this guy. He's just drunk. But this is literally the best spot.
Drunk.
This is the best spot for this. I don't
You're not
know.
God. You're not God.
I'm gonna mute it Hey, yo, I might end up trying to do it like in the front of the house. See if I can get like some reception in front of the house because this this guy he keeps like talking to me while I'm doing this stuff and I can't really focus. And I'm trying to focus on it, but like it really throws me off. So I'm probably gonna move it to
Your
uh,
shit.
the front of the house and just try to
Just leave your
um,
shit right now. It's okay.
just try to do it so I can focus because I can't deal with this. um,
Uh,
Test, test, test. Who is this feminist you're talking about, GM? I think that I'm getting privacy. I'm not sure. He keeps following me around the house. So I moved to the front, right? And he followed me around to the front. And I'm like, what the hell? Hold on a second.
say anything.
All right, you guys asked for it, man.
You want to record something? Well,
You get a
this
couple
guy.
of seconds, all right? That's all you get.
So this
All right, y'all. So, what he thinks about the? Yeah. So if he follows me again, I'm just gonna do it in the car. I'll do a podcast somewhere else. Because at this point, I can't even focus on this stuff. He's like turning the light on and off and stuff. Test. Yeah, I drove to a gas station and I'm actually doing the stream while I'm at a gas station now, which is kind of funny. I never thought I'd be doing this. Sure y'all can hear me now. I don't know. I guess you can technically see me. There you go. See? Hi, I'm in the car now. I'm just chilling. Uh, but yeah, y'all are catching me right outside of a gas station. So this is actually a little bit more what um personal. I can just say the shit in the car straight up, as opposed to just a guy was blasting his music, so I had to wait till he left. The guys that they have their cars and they have like the really big like stereo systems and shit like that, and they like blast their music and all that. Yeah. Anyways, origin story. Honestly, it's not that big a deal. I feel like in the red pill manosphere or just the community online where people are slightly more enlightened than everyone else. In this community, origin stories are almost like comic book origin stories. They're like, oh man, he went through this horrible stuff and he became the Incredible Hulk or something like that. Mine's actually way more. It's pretty bad, man. I've been everything. I think every archetype that every guy tells you shouldn't become in a manosphere. I've been the simp. I've been all of them. I've paid for online stuff before. What else did I do? I've like I've what pretty much anything you can think of that's not good. I used to be the white knight. Um, what else? I used to be trying to think about something else. Can y'all hear me? By the way, just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, based off your response, I'm assuming y'all can hear me. Yeah, I've been that. Um, yeah. So my origin story is fairly simple. I have a lot of similarities with a lot of guys. So I started out. Um, wouldn't it be crazy if he got in his car and followed me over here? By the way, that'd be nuts. I'd be like, oh shit. Uh, uh, um. Anyways, yeah, my origin story is very similar. Very simple. I started out um, being raised by my mom. My dad was he wasn't in the picture very long, and when he was just outside, like you know, drinking stuff like that. He didn't really. He was pretty much. My dad was pretty much Tyrone. Basically, he was like a tall, lanky Tyrone. And interestingly enough, I at first it was like, man, why does my dad do this to my mom? But eventually, I kind of learned, like, wait a minute, she just likes these kind of guys, right? Because I used to remember hearing stories about her talking about guys that she was into or that were into her and that wanted to give her the world and stuff like that. And these guys had means, but she just didn't want them. Um, Yeah, but that's at least my mom's origin story, the origin story of how I popped out of right, how I came to be. My mom got with a Tyrone, a guy who knew how to dress and he knew how to talk her up, and here I am. Um, she taught me essentially to be a gentleman. She tried to teach all the males in the family, which there were like I think there were four of us, and then there was one sister. She was the baby, and she taught us to. Um, she would teach us that it's our responsibility to protect her and him in the corner. No, there's no one here. Good. I'm glad you can hear me clearly. Yeah, there's no one here. I literally drove to the gas station because he was annoying, and I didn't want him to like messed this up because I like doing streams even though I don't do them that often, you know. Um, so anyways, yeah, my dad was a Tyrone. My mom got with him. Um, when I came into the picture, she tried to raise me to be like a pretty much like a gentleman, like a 1950s gentleman. Um, After years of getting rejected by a lot of women, and I was extremely naive. I didn't know about their darker nature or anything. I was just getting rejected left and right. I think in middle school there was guys who got pretty lucky with women, and I remember witnessing their exploits and thinking, man, like how come I'm not doing that? What's wrong with me? And then like I think in high school, uh, I was very brave when it came to talking up women. But like I remember in high school, there's a school cheerleader. She was like the top tumbler in the school, and I remember I was gonna chat her up. And she like I used to show her my videos because I tumbled too, but I was like self taught. But like a she went to like a gym, like an official like Woga gym. She used to train with like Nasty Luke and like actual like Olympic gymnasts and stuff like that. But like I would show her my videos and she'd be like, "Wow, you're pretty good" and stuff like that. And like I called myself trying to talk to her, and like this one girl was like, "You shouldn't talk to her," or like, "You shouldn't try." That was kind of my first glimpse at the red pill. Technically, I think one of the first glimpses is her saying basically, "You're not on her level. You shouldn't try to talk to her." I don't know if that chick was actually trying to save me from rejection. I actually didn't end up trying to like chat with her or stuff like that. She had a sister who was actually way hotter than her, but she was worse at tumbling. Let me skip ahead, right? Because I'm just I'm doing that stuff that chicks do. Um, so pretty much after a lot of rejections, oh, there are a lot of women that friend zoned me. There were a lot of women I didn't even know what they were doing at the time, but there were women who were saying I like you better as a friend. That happened like probably 8 or 9 times in the initial phases because I didn't really know how to be attractive to women. I think there was a period after ninth grade where I was literally invisible to most women, and all the way up to like senior year, like where I had prom and stuff. Basically, like I asked a chick as a favor to go to prom with me, and like the prom pics and stuff like that. Like I was pretty much like the dork, like orchestra dork kind of like kid where like I didn't really like I was very introverted. I didn't talk. Girl sounds like I didn't talk. I didn't really talk a lot to people. Um, I was very quiet. Um, there wasn't a lot of conversation or discussion with people, and now I was like talented kinesthetically. I was like on the breakdancing team. Uh, So I did have that going for me. I could do some pretty amazing things. It was just when it came to actually talking to women, like pretty much at high school, I was invisible. I was one of the invisibles. Like women didn't really see me. Uh, Now there were some attraction. There were certain people that I gravitated towards. There were really intelligent women that I gravitated towards, like really like high level musicians and like super brilliant like chemists, like chemistry focused like women. So basically like the Asian nerd and stuff like that, and the really smart people, I gravitated towards having conversations with them for some reason. But even those people thought they were better than me, but it was like this weird like like I don't know, everyone was always there was always this jockey for positioning, but they weren't like actually like into me. So after years of being alone and stuff like that, I basically was like, holy hell, this is horrible. Like I didn't have a sense of my manhood or anything. I was just like literally just flailing in the wind, wondering like, oh, is this, it got to the point where I was so lonely that I basically just disassociated from myself, and I didn't really, I wasn't like, at the point of um, like self deletion or anything, but like that. But it's like there was no sense of identity or purpose, even like my own masculine identity. Like I didn't even have that. I was just kind of this thing.
it felt like. Um, Granted, I did do breaking and stuff like that, and I guess that was like doing that with friends and stuff was cool. But I was still this son husband. I was under my mom's watch. She was the main caretaker, and we were supposed to see her as the. I have a video series called The Mother and the Father. Like, I'm the mother and father. She wanted us to see her as the mom and the dad. And of course, this created a lot of confusion and messed up probably a lot of our psyches. But um, yeah, that was kind of the background in terms of like right before all of the crazy stuff started happening. No one's better than anyone, just like you or I will never be. No, well, yeah, but unfortunately, the way that this world is, like the Western world, everyone's extremely insecure, and they're always searching for ways to gain power over other people. That's just how it is. Like the dark aspect of humanity, right? I have this thing I say where I say all red pills lead to the red pill. So pretty much every red pill you can think of, whether it's the gender red pill, that we're talking about, gender dynamics and stuff like that, it leads to the economic red pill, and it leads to a political red pill, and it leads to ultimately a group of individuals who are conspiring against large amounts of individuals. Pretty much all roads lead to Rome, basically. Like I think that's the video I'm gonna do. But pretty much everything you can think of that has exploitation at a very large level, uh, it leads to other levels of exploitation in other areas. Like you think about how we're having issues with women and stuff like that, and how they can't see it, and they're just emotionally just going off without being controlled. Basically, they're just running off a cliff. They're running off of an evolutionary cliff. They're like, well, we want jobs, and there's no men around, so we'll just chase jobs. And they're taking humanity and just chucking themselves off of an evolutionary cliff. And the guys are like, hey, there's a cliff where you're going, right? You get your careers, but you're not going to have any guys that you want to be with because your status is too high. And we're trying to steer them in a different direction. We're like, hey, go right, go right, go right, go right. And they're just like, no, we're going to go off the cliff. You can't tell us what to do. We're empowered, right? And then you got some women that are like, hey, I think you should go right because there's some women falling off of that cliff, right? Yeah. And the people who are treating each other bad are a lot of them are just people who don't know how hard life is. Because one of my early dark lessons was getting into a bad accident. I was involved in a attempted, basically, you could almost call it an attempted murder. The person was trying to essentially harm me, but after harming me, they left, right? That happened really young. That happened like before I was like 10 years old. I don't want to go into too big of details, but essentially they caused bodily harm to me and then they ran. um, and then like that was like, and the crazy thing is like I saw them and they saw me, and I knew, I guess I got a feel for who they were just by looking at them. But then they did what they did, and then they just ran off. Um, and they were eventually caught by the fire department for where I was, and then then it kind of went on from there. But that was my glimpse into the red pill, at least as far as the dark aspects of the psyche. Um, Now, where where we kind of go into the dark aspects of like where I started actually going into the actual like gender red pill, which is like mainly what we talk about. Um, that stuff started. That stuff started happening. Um, what? Well, my first. Let's see how many relations. So the first glimpse well, the first heartbreak, I guess you could say, was from a chick. I didn't sleep with her or anything. I just really liked her and thought that we were gonna do something. Thought we were gonna be together for a little while. Um, I think it was delusional in a way, but it was unrequited uh, love. Um, I really liked her, and I think it got to the point where I was infatuated with her, but then she wasn't really at that same level, and she just really liked the attention. And she had another guy she was with. She just kind of strung me along because she liked the attention, um, which I wasn't really adept enough to understand what was happening. So the fallout, like I invested so much that it ended up causing a lot of pain. What's going on? Okay, make sure nobody's following. All right. So, anyways, let's see what the comments are going on. Court red pill sucks. Just saying. I get it. People treat others poorly. No one is better than anyone. GM with a weird, funny smiley face. Somebody tried to snatch me when I was 7, walking to school. Yeah. And Pyong, or I don't know how to say it, Peng like, yeah, there's some dark stuff that happens to people, and we have to realize that, there's a lot of women, they kind of, uh, they like to use the S assault stuff as a way of like garnering sympathy, just because that's kind of how women just naturally are. They use sympathy to survive in environments just like children do. Um, I guess they just don't realize that people who are adept and intelligent enough can see what they're doing, but like they need an infinite stream of sympathy. It never stops. They need an infinite stream of people feeling sorry for them, and they don't feel any shame for people feeling sorry for them. It's actually like a currency for them, almost like attention. It's how they survive. But like uh, that that whole S assault stuff and how they kind of like overuse that, it's eventually going to get to the point where something is going to happen to some of them and it'll be actually real, but no one's going to care. Um, that's the dark part of why you shouldn't mess with that kind of stuff, right? You shouldn't mess with public trust in such a way where it ruins people's lives, and the person you're ruining's lives hasn't even committed such a thing. And this is where we get into yeah, and it has to do with neoteny. If women weren't neotenous creatures, they would not be able to garner that sympathy. It would be impossible. They'd be laughed at and probably, you know, ignored, simply just like men. um, so anyways, uh, yeah, after that unrequited love situation, then I met another chick, and this other chick was uh, there were a lot of little tiny situations that just didn't really pick off. There's a lot of situations I think that men go through when they're actually trying to get women, where they almost get one, but then the woman comes up with some little tiny excuse for why she can't do it yet or something like that, and then he misses that opportunity. It could happen like maybe 6 or 7 good times before he actually finds a woman who is actually pretty sure about being in a relationship with them. The whole paradigm where men take the women he can and women take the men she wants, basically. um, until he develops options. But at first, you what is it like? It's like I like to use the acronym of like men are like boxers. They're like amateur men are like championship boxers who never get. They're like amateur boxers who never get a lot of fights. Women are like what are women? Women are like they're like trainers, I guess. I guess for the analogy, you could say they're like boxers, but they're like trainers. They always get to go in fights. They get to go in fights and do, you know, pre-games and pre-fights and stuff like that. Whereas guys, they have to do their own marketing. They have to do their own, you know, women, they automatically get fights just because, you know, they just automatically get it. And so they get the experience, they get the social know-how to know how to maneuver when certain things happen and things like that. But then the guys, they never really know how to do these things because most times they don't get opportunities to get fights. And when they do get opportunities, sometimes the fight's called off for disqualification, or you know, he did something wrong and it it made the trainer on the other side nervous, and they're like, hey, we're gonna disqualify him, no, the fight's off, or something like that, right? So then the guy never really has the opportunity to go in for that kill and learn how to get the killer shots. And so whenever he steps in the ring with a trainer, the trainer gets fights automatically, so they always win. I don't know. It's a poor analogy, I think, but I have to work on it. But the idea is that for a man to get fights, for a man to get um, uh, successful with women, he has to develop a tool set. Women, they don't have to develop anything. They don't. Their means of attracting people is already built in. It's like having a cell phone with a camera in it. You know, they already have a camera on their cell. Like I, like their ability to do things. A lot of women's ability to get certain things done in life are just built in. Like life is already built for them to have their needs met. Whereas men, it's not the same. Um, but this kind of goes into the latter stages, towards the middle to the end of my life story. Um, I guess this is my technically my first taste of the red pill. Um, so after all the loneliness and stuff like that, I ran into some narcissists, some women who were narcissistic, and this was kind of my first. And I think I was studying psychology at the time. I was at a community college, and the first narcissist I ran into, first narcissist was um, a chick in a community college class, and she was a covert narcissist, and she was also a woman. But I liked her, right? Like I really liked her, but she didn't like me, which is cool, right? It's fine. Okay, you don't like me, whatever. But then I noticed something. Like so I noticed she didn't like me, which is cool. All right, you don't like me. But then I stopped talking to her, right? Because at first I was texting her and I was talking to her in class, but then she wouldn't text back. So I immediately stopped texting her and stopped talking to her in class. And she didn't like that, right? So she like while I was talking to the teacher and I was about to leave, she kind of did this thing that narcissists do where they try to, like, if they feel like you have power over them or you're abandoning them, they will do one last move to discard you so that they can feel powerful again. So when I was leaving the class, she asked me to talk. She's like, "Hey, can I talk?" She was like, "Sure." And she, after the class, she was like, "Hey, I was just thinking we could just be friends or something like that." Basically, this was her way of discarding me, saying, "Oh, you're not gonna get the satisfaction of, you know, of just ignoring me. I'm gonna discard you." Like narcissists, they really don't like when a person uh just kind of moves on and shows boundaries. They kind of want to, they kind of want to take a dump on everyone they come across. But I didn't understand that this is what she was at the time. So so when she said, "Hey, you want to be friends?" I was like, "Sure, let's be friends." And she like fist bumped me, right? So in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, what? Not 2 or 3 days ago, maybe less than a week, I wanted to basically get with this chick. But then basically there's a video I have called The Kiss of Death. And I think it's called The Kiss of Death. And that's essentially what she was doing. She knew that I had disregarded her, and I was like, okay, moving on to the next woman. She didn't like that feeling. But when she put me in the friend zone, it made her feel powerful again. And I could feel the emotional shift happening, and I was like, wow, that felt awful. And I was like, why did she do that? And it led me down a rabbit trail, a rabbit hole of learning about narcissism, stuff like that, because it felt really horrible and it felt like I was losing energy and stuff like that. um, I think narcissists are at the deeper ladder and the darker end of the red pill. uh, at least the more aggressive ones. Um, but then that wasn't the first narc I met. After that, I was like, okay, that was horrible. But then I tried to move on and recover from that situation. But then there was another one that was even worse. This particular one was extremely, like, she was attracted to me, and she was like a 7, like a solid 7. She was beautiful. She liked me. I was wet behind the ears, but I still knew how to do some things. Like, we were sitting on a bench, and I reached over and I like played with her hair, and I could already see, yep, I got this one. And we like set a date. What's going on? No single event, then red pill over time. Pretty much. For herself. Oh yeah, the more desperate they become, the more they behave like Alice. Yeah. um. So yeah. So this particular chick, um, she got tired of me, or let's say, she came. What did she do? So we were talking and stuff like that. I was playing with her hair, and she's like, "Oh, you men." She was saying, the flirty lines and stuff like, "Oh, you men, you only want one thing." And I was like, yeah, whatever. You want to do things in the back of my head. And so, like, when she did, like, when we got to the point where, like, and there were little telltale signs that she was kind of like narcissistic. Like, my friend, when I first met her by the piano, he noticed her and he didn't want to go and talk to her, but I went over and talked to her. And later he told me, dude, she actually had bad vibes. Like, after everything was over, he's like, yeah, she had bad vibes, and that's why I didn't want to talk to her. And I was like, why didn't you warn me? He's like very intuitive, and so I thought it was hilarious. But like, basically, she wanted me to come over and talk to me, and she was scoping me out before I even came over and started hitting on her, which is scary, but that's kind of what they do. That's how women operate too. But again, narcissists are at the darker end. Now, a lot of women are narcissistic, but you know, I blame social media, but it goes deeper. I'm not just gonna be one of those people that's like, oh, it's just social media. No, it's deeper than that. Um. Anyways, um. So I was wet behind the ears. I think on the first date, we went out, we chatted, we walked, we went out, we sat in the grass, and then we went to like play basketball. So we went to like the park, but then the people who give us the basketball to go out and play, she started treating them like, she had this like aggressive look towards them. Like it was really bad. It was like a shift from what I saw from her, which was very playful. She had like a really good, solid figure. Like, she was a beautiful woman, but like, there was a lot messed up with her now that I'm looking back at it. But and of course, I was literally, at this point I was an incel, but like, I knew some stuff about how to attract women. So I was, you could almost say I was like a up and coming, uh, what what's the word that guys get called? Um, let's see if they're, no, they're not saying it. I forgot what it's called. Pickup artists. I wasn't doing pickup artistry. I was just wanting to talk to women. I guess it wasn't really like a game for me. It was just like, I want to figure out how to get women, right? But then I knew a little bit of stuff, and I was watching some content, so I learned a little bit, um, when I wasn't as adept. Um, but then I would talk to her. It was funny. So when we were leaving, I asked her if she wanted to come over to my house for some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and she got the hint, and I knew what I was doing. But then she came over, and I was so nervous, right? Because I had never done anything with a chick. So I was basically just sitting on the bed for like 30, 40 minutes. And I was like, basically talking myself out of the whole situation. It's like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. Eventually, she said, hey, I'm going to have to go in 30 minutes. She was basically saying, hey, if you want to, do this thing, then you're going to have to do it now, basically. But literally for the next 30 minutes, I just sat there and did nothing. I was so nervous. Now, I did like put my hand on her hips like a little, but then I'm like, no, I can't do it. Like I was so nervous. It was so it was so sad, but at the same time, maybe my inner self knew more about what was going on than what was going on. I honestly still wish I would have nailed her. But I was I don't know, I was a little wet behind the ears. After about 30-40 minutes, she got up because she like put her phone on the table and she was basically ready. She's like, come on, you just take me, dude. But after 30 minutes, she was like, Jesus, this guy, he just won't budge. And she got up. She's like, hey, I gotta go. And I'm like, all right. I just said all right, and she left. And then like I think I remember 10-15 minutes later, I was like, dang it. But then later on, when I ran into her again, I was chatting with her, and I had this really gut wrenching, like my stomach was turning while I was talking to her, and it was this really weird gut feeling. It was like, hey, get away from this person, right? Because I ran into her again, and we were chatting at this like cafe or something at the school, and my gut was turning. It was like, it was painful, and I was ignoring it. I'm like, no, look at her, she's hot, I want to talk to her, right? And generally when you get those kind of gut feelings, that's a sign that you're in a bad situation, or the person you're talking to, they're very dark, like they're thinking about doing things to you that aren't good, or they don't have your best interest in mind, or something's going to happen and you just happen to be in the area where it could happen. I think a lot of these things are instinctual, but unfortunately, guys kind of ignore this because we think with our little head. And that's what I did. I followed her back to her place and I opened up to her emotionally. And she gave me this weird stare. Like she told me to look at her. And she gave me this, what's called the psychopathic stare. Um, it's a very interesting concept. You'd have to read up on it. But essentially, after I opened up to her, I was essentially creating a situation for her to feel omnipotent. She was discarding me, but it was this one last hurrah, right? Um, a very painful thing, because after I opened up to her, she was discarding me almost immediately. And she did say, I do remember I pretty much glitched the situation, because she was like, maybe we could be friends. And I was like, I don't think I want to be friends. And she got angry, right? She got angry, but then I still ended up discarding myself, not realizing it. But yeah, she discarded me. But it's a weird emotional thing, because like women do it too. They just don't do it all the time, or they do it more craftily. Like, she is a woman. I'm just saying the average woman does the same thing. It's just probably not to the same degree as like a more malignant narcissist. Um, but I could be wrong on that. I'm just throwing out my theories. Um, Anyways, after discarding me, it took me probably a month. Actually, it took me like 3 or 4 months to recover from that. And I had like nightmares. I don't think I had actual nightmares, but like basically it was awful. Um, and I know it seems simple. It's like, dude, she didn't really do a lot of stuff. It was a psychological thing. A lot of times women and narcissists operate under uh, psychosomatic thresholds, where the guy or the person in question doesn't know that they're essentially being compromised on levels beyond their comprehension. Some people are just savants at doing this, right? Um, and Yeah, after that happened, there were a couple of women who were doing similar things. They would do the psychosomatic threshold, they would operate under that threshold, and I started picking up on the women doing this, and I started resenting them. And then I would go deeper into learning information about why they're doing these little small. Some of them were just, light social gamuts, but some of them were very dark discard situations. Some of them, like I had one girl laugh. She laughed at me and said that she liked to, like, or she was saying that she liked blue balling guys or something like that, but she basically did it to me. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that," or something like that. She would pretend to be interested and stuff like that. Um, a lot of other situations, other little small things that happen, and a lot of times guys remember these little small things because they don't have a lot of options, so they stick out in their mind. The rejections stick out worse when you don't have options. This is what I don't think women realize. A lot of times women will be like, "Oh, we get rejected too," but it's like, yeah, but you're getting rejected while you're in a position of abundance. Being rejected while you're in a position of not being an abundant, like when you're not in a position of opulence, rejection, you remember those little small rejections for years. They don't go away at all. Like it's hard to forget them. Um, but this leads up to my first long-term relationship with the more recent relationship in the video where I talk about the fall from grace. Um, and this pretty much gets up to where I am now. This particular woman was she was very empathic, cool to be with, stuff like that. Um, I felt like, I hope it's not messing up. Let's see. All right, can y'all still hear me? I'm pretty much gonna wrap up. I'm very close to the end. Like it's. I'm hoping you can read some comments. Incels are legit. Hold on, I don't think incels are legit. You always have a choice, but you just might not like them. I guess you gotta define legit. I don't know what you mean by that. You're good. You're good. Oh, thanks. Enjoy the torture of others. Yeah. Um. Uh. Unfortunately, a lot of women do like rejecting men. They don't like to admit it though. Um. Um. Some of them don't like it. People are people. Women are human. They're not necessarily just evil and bad and stuff like that. I think it's just the way that society is structured. Imagine you have infinite options and nobody holds you accountable for anything. Your potential for having a decent moral compass is going to suffer, and it's not necessarily just your fault. That's just the nature of being in a position like that. They have endless attention on tap. That would ruin men just the same as it would ruin, it would ruin us too if we had that, but we don't have it. Men have the greater potential for becoming more moral than women just by nature of how their lives are set up. Uh, that's just how it is. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have immoral men. You have plenty of immoral men. Um, anyways, I know you do, GM. Oh man. So as a wrap up, so with the last chick that I was with, or with the ex fiance, we had a wedding date, and like we were engaged and stuff like that. And her dad, like I went to him and asked her to marry his daughter or stuff like that. And it was interesting because the first thing he asked me was like, "Oh, what kind of job do you got?" or something like that. He was pretty cool, laid back guy, but he was kind of just like he's kind of just went along with what his wife said and stuff. So he's still a pretty cool guy ultimately, but like there were a lot of things he didn't understand about women, about their nature, and he just kind of, I don't know. His daughter was like daddy's little girl. she got away with a lot of things, and she never wanted him to know that she was this dark person. I could see that, especially towards the end. Most of our relationship was fairly decent, but I think halfway through, at the 1.5 mark, she broke up with me, and it kind of, I didn't understand what was going on. But she asked, she's like, "Hey, can we talk?" All right. She went out, took me, we went outside, and she said, "Hey, I want to break up or something." Like, all right. And then it was kind of funny because we went back to her place, and then I tried to, get intimate. She's like, "No, no, 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 no ending sex or no something like that." And so towards the very end is where I kind of showed a little more strength in the situations where I said, "Look, you broke up with me, so if you want to get back with me, here are my rules. You can't get with another person, and you have to come to me." So she literally showed up at my place, and I was like, okay. She came back to my place, and I'm assuming she wasn't with other guys. So then I took her back, and before that, we were good. Our relationship was amazing and everything, but like the breakup, from what I understand, it was for little small reasons that didn't even really matter in the grand scheme of things. I've noticed women, when they break up with guys, it's often for little small tiny things that aren't really like, it's overcomable. Women don't see overcomable things as overcomable. They see them as reasons to leave. Any small thing is a reason for a woman to leave. It's not a reason for her to stay. Unless, now there's this guy, Alan Real, in there. He's a content creator. He's a good one. Um, he says a lot of women, whenever they are with a guy who's not right for them, the woman will find reasons to stay. But if there's a guy who is right for them, then they'll find any reason to leave. Any reason. Um, he's a very smart, insightful guy, so you guys should seriously look him up. I'll put his name in the chat. He's got really good stuff. I'd like to talk to him and have him on the pod. Hold on. Here you go. Oh man. Um, yeah, I remember you talking about that, GM. Uh anyways, so with the ex, right? Um, so this is later in the relationship. She started finding reasons to not like me. She started going out to girls' night outs, and I would tell her, "Hey, you can't do that. You can't go out," stuff like that. And she would come back and say I was like on my best behavior and I didn't do anything and stuff like that. I think like eventually, what, a year or two later, she admitted to me that um, she was secretly like um, jacking. She was secretly sperm jacking me for like the first 2 years of the relationship. And of course, her father didn't know this. Father still thinks she's like daddy's little girl and stuff like that. Um, but when I learned that, it was devastating. But I still tried to move through it because, again, it's listen, guys. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. The guys that tolerate a lot of stuff, they only do it out of necessity. They do it because they don't have options. Here's another thing I would say. I wasn't actually the guy who didn't have options. A lot of women actually see me as handsome. I have to be honest about that. A lot of them see me as handsome, but they don't think I have options because I don't carry myself with that kind of confidence. But they do see me as handsome. I've been able to attract fairly attractive women. It's just when they get that kind of, oh, he doesn't have a lot of options vibe, like it basically is like a revolving door. Um, but when I was with the ex, those options were there. Yes, I said sperm jacking. She during our intimate time, she would She would go in the bathroom, spit it out, and just use your imagination. She was trying to get pregnant and stuff like that, secretly for the first 2 years of relationship. And I didn't know that she was doing this until the last month or two of the relationship. Um, I'll answer that, Ghost Cog. I'll put you on the thing so I can make sure I answer it. Yeah, so after that situation, I was devastated, but I was trying to move through it. And now before that, I did call off the wedding, and I was gonna do it at a latter date, but I guess she was kind of annoyed by that. Um, there was one thing that happened in particular that was partly my fault. I was doing a Tinder experiment, right? And this is where the whole relationship just kind of imploded. I was doing a Tinder experiment, and during the experiment, like my experiment involved her, which was a terrible idea. And I was telling her, hey, get on Tinder and see how many guys you can populate in your Tinder profile. Uh, and I'm going to do the same thing, and we're going to see what happens. Um, I'll tell you the reasons why this is bad to do, but this is just something I did because I felt like I trusted her 100%, which trust is not something you can ever give a woman 100% because especially women in the West are driven by their instincts, their base instincts, because they always want a dopamine hit, right? Um, you can't ever really trust them unless they feel like you're a scarce resource. If they feel like you're scarce and you can run wherever you want to go, and they are in this like energy where they're like, oh God, I hope this guy doesn't leave me, then you might have a little more trust. But she wasn't in that energy. She was a little more comfortable and kind of bored. Like that was her energy. So that was not a good thing to do. But I remember after like a day or two, I was like, okay, we're done. I'm hoping my computer is capable of dealing with the end of this podcast. We'll see. So pretty much, see if it's working. Yeah, it's working. So pretty much after that situation, um, after that whole situation, that whole debacle, um, she found a couple of guys on Tinder, and I actually, while I was sleeping with her, I was cuddled up with her, and I looked through her phone while I was cuddled up with her, and I saw there was like 8 or 9 guys she was having conversations with, and I was like, I remember I was very detached, and I wasn't really focused on her leaving me or anything. There was no because it's starting to die out a little bit. I'm trying to see if I can finish this before it freaks out. Let's see. It's working a little bit. Let's see if I can get through all of this. So, um, she yeah, she'll. I think within a couple of days of her talking to them, she came up to my place. After we had like a little tiny argument, or we didn't have an argument over the phone, but I was ranting about something. But then like a few hours later, well, a few hours before that, she told me she loved me. But then, like, a few hours later, after the rant, like, literally right in the middle of the rant, where I was just talking about something I was annoyed about regarding, like, world events and politics and stuff like that. She, like, she knocked at my door and dropped my stuff off and said she loved me, but she wasn't in love with me. Which is like an immature way of saying, like, hey, I'm no longer attracted to you, and I found someone else that I'm attracted to. So yeah, after that happened, immediately after it happened, I was pretty devastated because it happened while I was sick. Like my mom, the same day, actually called her and told her to go get some stuff for me to get better. And she came in, brought the stuff and stuff like that. And that same day, it pretty much went downhill. It was like a couple of days before my birthday, actually. It was like 2 or 3 days before my birthday, and I was sick. I think I think I actually felt sick because of the stuff that she was planning, though. I know this is gonna sound all mystical and stuff like that, but I think she actually like the stuff that she was thinking was actually having an effect on my body, and I was like the plans that she was making for me were probably longer. Like they were probably much deeper and much more premeditated than I even realized. Um, but that eventually led to her leaving me, and then um, after leaving me, um, she what? After leaving me, uh, oh, I got angry, but then I sent like an angry text and stuff like that. But then it like apparently my text unnerved her so much that she said she was shaking after work and everything like that. And I was texting her saying, "No, weren't this whole, you weren't actually this hopeless romantic. You were just this like." And I told her I was the hopeless romantic. You weren't actually a romantic. You were just wanted to go find some cheap experience. But then all the little stuff I was saying, she said it unnerved her so much, and it like she was shaking and stuff like that. Which is good, right? Because women like drama, so it gave me a little bit of stake in the game. I just didn't realize that. Um, but then after that, like we got together again, and this is where things got a little bit darker. We got together again, and I, kissed her and stuff like that. And we chatted, but then afterwards, like, well, I was like, "Hey, I want to be with you one more time, intimately," and she basically agreed. Came over, but when she came over, she looked distraught. We had our intimate time, but then I didn't realize until like 5 or 6 days later, she told me she was pregnant, and I thought it was mine, right? Because I didn't use protection or anything. um, but apparently there was another guy in the picture, and she didn't tell me or anything. Um, there was another guy in the picture, and she told me she was pregnant, but it wasn't mine. And so that kind of cracked my psyche. I was basically in a I'm gonna self delete mode. Uh, I went there pretty fast, but before I went there, I mentally knew I was gonna go there, and I was trying to prepare for it mentally. um, but I ended up getting there pretty fast, and I had to get a friend to help me. There are a lot of situations there I probably can't even speak about on YouTube, but um, there are a lot of people who helped me not make that decision. Let's just say that. Um, Granted, this was even after knowing red pill information that I was doing this. So like even if you know the red pill information, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can cope with the emotional pain. Um, that could be a video in itself. Knowing things isn't the same thing as experiencing things. You kind of have to have both. Because I actually deeply loved her, which a lot of men tend to do. They tend to actually love their women. Again, men love women like women love children, but women don't understand that. Women think that men love the way they do, and they project onto us, thinking we're as cold as them, but they don't realize that doesn't come till later when the guy gives up on love, and that those are the guys they end up dealing with, and they like those guys more because those guys are reflecting exactly how they feel about themselves, but then they're also reflecting what the women like, how they love men, which is they don't. That's why they like those men, because it makes them feel less guilty. When they're around men who actually have the capacity to love them, those men turn them off because they don't want to be responsible for a person that they're not going to be capable of loving. And when I say them, they don't want to be responsible. I'm saying women who aren't virgins and who don't have a low count, right? Women who can't pair bond. Uh, yeah, a good rule of thumb, Ghost Cog. But experience is the best teacher. Um, Essentially, though, what I learned from the situation, because after that happened and I did get to, I'm gonna self-delete mode. Um, Obviously, I didn't make the decision, but I was messed up. It still am for like the last 8 months after it. And I remember before, like when we had our conversation, she was like in the car, she was like, "Oh, you're gonna be okay," and she was soothing me and everything. And I was literally crying in front of her and everything, like I was breaking down and everything. And I know, basically, it's not a good thing to do with women because they see it as a reason, like it's almost like a validation for their leaving you. They don't really view it on a human level. They view it on a narcissistic kind of like your display of emotion is a discard of yourself. It's messed up, but that's how it is. I didn't realize this back then, but like it was an authentic expression, but it doesn't matter really. Yeah, that's true, GM. Yep. But again, learning, and this was the first long-term relationship. I managed to keep frame in that relationship for 3.5 years, like all the way up to the very end, basically. Which for me, and that being my first relationship, and growing up with a mom who was teaching me basically to be a square, or like a simp, that is a pretty remarkable feat that I was able to keep masculine frame for 3 years straight. Um, that's one of the things I'm really proud about. But I did want to eventually leave the situation um, with her full respect, but I understand that that's not always possible. It helped me understand that why guys value respect more than they value love, because a woman loving you, like a woman can love you and commit great atrocities against you. Like she can commit great sins and she can basically completely disrespect you while she loves you. So like it's kind of a very fickle thing. Like it doesn't matter. They don't show as much deep devotion and expression when they love you, but when they respect you, they fear you, and that fear keeps them from doing terrible things to you. It doesn't always, but they revere you more. They are more interested in you, and you have a larger likelihood of, if you wanted to text her back just at random, there's a chance she would respond even if you don't want to. um, all right, so just as a wrap up, so where does that leave me today? I'm still dealing with the ramifications of the end of the relationship, still recovering from it, still work out like every other day trying to maximize my own, you know, physical potential. Because even though I have a so-called handsome face, I recognize that there are other things I need to work on, like my physique, things like that. Um, I think there are two other women I've dealt with besides her after the fact. Uh, Both of them, I basically went out and gamed and started talking to them. The first one I messed up on. She really liked me. It was kind of nuts. Like when stuff works for me, it really works. I knock it out the park. But this was like literally like the first time we went out, she was at my place and we were pretty much dead on. Um, she was like, it was funny, like, cause she was complaining. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to go to work tomorrow." I won't go into it too much, but She was like bragging about me basically, like to her friend. Like it was kind of funny, like on her phone. It's like, Jesus, this guy's amazing. But like, I messed that up because like I think 4 or 5 days later, I tried to invite her to do something, but then she was like, basically, that was like a red flag. It was like, oh God, he's trying to connect with me on a human level, and he's trying to like, basically, it's like relationship vibes, and you have to be careful because like I wasn't actually trying to do the relationship vibes because I already knew that she was getting slammed by other dudes. Um, but like, I guess she thought that I was trying to pull up those vibes. Um, what's up with your channel? I was looking at your previous. Didn't see that one with Rad till recently. Oh, Rage Against the Feet. I don't know. I don't know. Are they hiding stuff? He's starting to get bigger, GM. Anyways, yeah, so that chick, basically after trying to reach out to her, she blocked, like she didn't want to talk to me anymore and ghosted me. And then like there was another chick, the most recent one, she she really liked me too, but she thought I was like messed up in the head at first because I wouldn't text her right away and I showed up to the date like 30 minutes late. But that just made her like me more. And I watched this happen. And I'm like, what the hell? Okay, this is why guys are assholes to women, because it makes them like you more. Like they revere you. It's strange, man. Like I was late to the date, and then like she would literally ask. She was on the text, like sending a message to my phone, saying like, "Hey, are you still coming?" Stuff like that. And when I did show up, like I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming," and I showed up and stuff like that. And we went back to my place the same night, just like the first chick. And stuff happened. Um, when she did leave, she was like, "Oh, we got to work on your texting. Like basically, like you got issues. We got to fix your issues and stuff like that." Um, Here was the mistake. I ignored her after that for like a couple of days, which was the right thing to do because she was emotionally damaged. And she couldn't connect anyway. Oh, yeah, you're right. Um, I think so. What are you referring to, GM? So after that happened, um, I think after a couple of days, I started feeling guilty. I was like, maybe I should talk to her. And that's when it went downhill. Um, I started trying to talk to her and trying to connect to her and stuff like that. And pretty much it went from her being super reverent and like, oh my God, like, because she would like apologize the first time. She would apologize. She'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't text fast enough. I'm sorry this, I'm sorry that, I'm sorry that. Basically, like she was like simping for me, basically the woman equivalent of it, because she thought I was this high value person. But like women perceive high value men as just men that treat them as like they're insignificant, like they don't need them, like they don't, like they have other options, they have other things they need to do. Women love being second or third or fourth or fifth place. They don't like being first place. Which is really the difference. That's really all that incels need to know, is just to like that whole hatred or the darker side of things that you feel, the resentment you feel towards women, you can twist that to where it's actually charismatic and they'll like it. You just got to learn to do it. You don't think the Chads don't have something similar to that? They're just charismatic about it. But they don't, those guys that get them, they don't like women. Like, they, why do you think they want to do other things like go and shoot pool with their friends and stuff? Why do you think those women are clamoring after them? Because those men realized, there's other stuff. When the guys who can get women, they don't want to be around them, but that's what makes them attractive to women. Um, hmm. I'm reading the comments. All right. So pretty much, okay. So with the second chick, so there's my ex-fiance, but then there's the 2 chicks after her, which leads up to current times. So after being with that chick that night, I got stood up twice. First time she apologized, said a bunch of stuff, I forgave her. Second time she did it again, stood me up again. And this was literally not that long ago, guys. Like, this was like, not at all. It wasn't years, it wasn't even months, it was weeks. And I that's why I started to understand the whole pump and dump thing. And I started to realize that like, it's you hear this stuff and you think it's a joke, but then when you actually realize you don't have a choice, when you try to emotionally connect with a lot of women, they can't reciprocate the emotions. And I didn't know that, because she did a lot of good things. Like, she was able to hide it really well because she would pretend to be empathic and stuff like that. But eventually I saw through the veil, and I don't think she knew I saw through the veil, but there were, you know, um, anyways, after the second time it happened, I ran into her again, but she was talking to her friends, and it was kind of embarrassing because I like saw her and I was gonna go up and talk to her, but she was talking to her friends, so I was like, "Oh, okay, my bad." Then I went and did something else, and that was pretty much it. Never talked to her again. But I was friend zoned after smashing her, which I was flabbergasted. Right, I was like, I can't believe, uh, I can't believe this is happening. It's kind of crazy. Like, after getting the guts, I'm still getting like discarded. Um, so when she first, when like in the messages, I remember I was talking to her. She's like, when I first met you, and after we smashed, I thought you were gonna ghost me, right? But then that feeling that she had, oh God, I think this guy might get rid of me. That kind of feeling, that angst that women have, it makes them treat you better. Modern women, Western women, right? But just women in general, it makes them treat you much better. There was actually another girl. So before her, there was this Venezuelan girl, and uh, I met her at a Walmart. GM, I know what you're gonna say. um, I know what you're gonna say. The inside joke Red Pill Mike had about me being at Walmart. Um, Met her at a Walmart, and she told me to get her number quickly because I think she was there with someone. She's like, hurry up, get my number. Then, like, we were talking. She didn't speak a lot of English, but I used a lot of translator to translate. She was gorgeous. She was super thick. She was, oh my God. But, like, I was too nice. I didn't have the killer instinct, let's just say. Um, I knew how to smash, but I didn't know. Wasn't super good at closing. Um, but she like, I never got her back to my place, and we went out, we got food, and we went shopped and stuff like that. But, like, I could never really pull it back to my school place because she had like a bunch of excuses. Basically, I was supposed to do it pretty quickly early on, but I didn't know. But I missed out on that opportunity, and in the middle of the date, I realized that she had a boyfriend because she told me, and mentally, like, morally, it messed me up. It threw off everything I was thinking in my head. I'm like, oh my God, she has a person, and she showed me the pictures and everything. I'm like, why is she comfortable with this? What the fuck, right? And it's not the only time that's happened to me, because that's a red pill lesson. But then a year or two before that happened, there was a woman who had a boyfriend, and I saw her leave someplace with her boyfriend, but she would talk to me and we had conversations, and I remember putting my hand up her skirt, and she would say, hey, not too far, and stuff like that. And I was it was funny because her friends would come over and talk to her while she was talking to me, and they looked at her and looked at me and looked back at her like, okay, we'll pretend like we didn't see that. And there were little things that I knew and that I could see about the morality of women in the past, and it kind of just transferred over. What aisle did I meet in? I think it was the makeup department, actually. Sometimes whenever I would try to pick up women, I would just go in the makeup department and I would see a bunch of women and I would just chat them up. But that's kind of what happened. I saw her in the aisle. I'm like, Jesus, she's banging. And she wasn't there with anyone, so I just literally walked up to her and started talking to her. And we were out on a date like the next couple of days, I think, or something like that. Um, at Academy. Nice. uh, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my story, y'all. Like, where I'm at now is like I've accepted that if I ever run into a chick who has a lot of tats and who just has a certain persona about her, that I basically, if I want to be intimate, I can't, and I have to pump and dump, or I could just, like, now there are women who are capable of long-term relationships and stuff like that, but you really can't know if they are, and once they put you in a particular category, you're kind of stuck there, right? So it's a very interesting uh place to be in as a guy. It's hard to decipher where they are. And women, if they perceive you as a beta, they're going to give you suboptimal treatment. So really, all you can do is pump them and dump them. The modern woman, the woman who has more than three partners, right? I'm not talking about women uh, who aren't women who aren't on the carousel. Um, but that's the world we're living in. I know it sounds bad. I wish it wasn't so bad, but yeah, it's pretty messed up. But that's what I was dealing with. My mom, it got to the point where when I would talk to my brothers and I would talk to my mom, they ended up thinking I was a misogynist and said I treat women terribly. Even my ex's mom, before I broke up with her, the mom, because I would talk to her about just how people are and how women are and stuff, and she thought I was misogynist and she thought I was like nuts and stuff like that. Um, of course the ex loved it, like the stuff she was into, and we were having fun, man. Oh my god. That was amazing. But anyways, um I'm reading Bullet's comment. Okay, so to answer Ghost Cog's question, um I don't see myself as PUA, as RP, or MGTOW. I see myself as a man, but I recognize that the things that all of these groups talk about are pieces of the puzzle. They're all part things that I take in. I take in knowledge from every group. I take it from the PUAs, take it from the Red Pill, from MGTOW, and I act accordingly. And I don't think guys should label themselves, but I mean, if they choose to do that, I'm not going to judge them or anything. It's whatever. We're pretty much all part of the same. We're on the same. We're on the same chessboard. So take that however you will. One thing I would say about women in this current society, they're queens. They can move anywhere on the board. Men, we have to move one step at a time, and it makes it harder to make the right moves when women have that kind of power. Like in a relationship, it makes it harder to actually get to where you want to go. So you just have to understand the rules of the game and do things that will work in your favor. Um, right now, this information isn't it isn't commonplace yet, but once and I don't know if it will ever become mainstream, because you gotta think about it. The red pill isn't new. That's one of the main things I've learned. There were men red pilled all the way back, all the way to the ancient Greeks, and even further back than that. Um, in the book of Sirach, which I think is a Catholic book, but it goes very far back. Uh, I think chapter 25, it talks about how women, whenever they have to, are in a position to economically take care of a man, they burn with anger and resentment. It actually says this basically. um, this book was made, I think it was made like 25 BC or something like that, before Christ or something. It's an old book, but it has red pill wisdom. What are the odds of that? What are the odds? Is that a coincidence? Um, Anyways, what the Bible talks about how children and women things about to try to find an excuse to dump everything, and I don't need it to do that. Yep. Now I know when I go back to the house that the drunk guy is gonna be there, so we're literally just gonna leave it at this, and I'll do a stream probably the next 2 or 3 days, or probably the next week or something like that. So, anyways, um, yeah, where did I start? Oh, the Saving Private Ryan. Kind of beyond that. Gender roles based on the swirly pilled. Iron Sun is red pilled with black and blue swirls. Black and blue swirls. I guess you could say that. That's interesting. Uh, yeah, I took the black pill before. I took the red pill. I took the purple pill. I took the white pill, which I don't know what. But I think it's losing signal. But it's probably a good sign that it's pretty much about done. Live with a drunk guy too. He's a drunk gay guy actually. It's an interesting story. Um, he actually really likes me. He's this drunk gay guy that is just has a lot of issues and stuff like that. Um, I know when I go back, he's gonna be there. That's why I'm trying to end the stream in the car. Uh, but yeah, um, it was cool talking to y'all. I'm gonna do a little more stuff. I'm gonna start churning out way more content. I'm gonna specifically focus on incels and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff, um, a lot of the people I talk to about my channels, like I've noticed a lot of uh, women probably don't really like my content because I don't really sugarcoat things. Um, I don't try to sugarcoat things. I just try to be honest, and I think it's good that I don't have as many views because my channel it's very dark. But I try to be reasonable, but there's a lot of dark aspects to it, and some of the stuff I talk about is based off of my experience. A lot of it is based off of my own experience with people. Um, which a lot of the reasons why we're not transcending a lot of this stuff is because there's still a lot of stuff that's thrown under the rug. Like for example, women, they want they seem to only want uh what there's this issue with like domestic uh like violence and stuff like that. Like women, they don't want to be physically assaulted and hurt and harmed and stuff like that. But they complain about these things, but they uh, emotionally abuse people with impunity. They do it without remorse. And so, like, things like that, where you have an individual who doesn't want to be mistreated, but then they treat people wrong. Um, those are some of the things that are kind of coming full circle, and we're starting to realize, like, you'll have women who'll say like, oh no, there's only 2% of males who get falsely accused, when it's like clearly bullshit, but we pretend like he has a leg to stand on. Like, I've actually talked to these individuals, and I'll literally tell them the data straight up and be like, no, 8% is this, but then you have a whole 50% where the data hasn't been crunched and hasn't been specified on either direction. So it just hasn't been taken further. But then you look at the real estimates of false assaults and or false allegations for like rape and and assault and stuff like that. Um, Pretty much, it doesn't, like, the real estimates are like between 17 and 44% of people, in situations where they're being accused of these things. But then guess what? Their lives are ruined. Um, their family thinks that they're, like, it actually happened to me. Actually, I was accused of, I wasn't accused of rape, but I was, like, basically I had a false allegation situation, or I had a situation similar to that on a campus. And it could have ruined my professional life, but, like, I got out of it by the skin of my teeth. I did community service and stuff like that. Um, if you guys know anything about Alan Roger Curry and you know what mode 1 is, then you know how I got in that situation. But yeah, I'll just give you a hint. Alan Roger Curry and mode 1 is essentially how I got in that situation. But I learned a lot pretty fast, and it was pretty rough. Also, cops aren't your friends. Don't speak to them because they're not trying to help you. They're trying to find a case. Um, yeah, that was a lesson I learned there. Well, I'm trying to go. Yeah, I'm trying to do that too, Bullets. I'm trying to go in a positive direction. Yeah, you have to be careful, Ghost Cog, when you're talking to women, especially. Women like to undermine information and they like to obfuscate. So whenever you try to, uh, now they're doing this because they want sympathy. They always want sympathy to go towards them. It's a very narcissistic thing. So whenever you tell them truth and you tell them facts and figures about how things are affecting other people, they resent this and they want the things you're saying, they want to capture, they want to gaslight, and to, like, they'll shift and they'll kind of they'll do something to make you not believe what you're saying. But really there's not a lot of things you can do to deal with this, and you have to be very careful because women are very good, like, they're not honest debaters, they're not honest logicians. They debate treacherously. Like, it's not a debate. Their their way of debating is, women debate social status. They debate, like, the way they debate, they try to bolster their own status in comparison to yours in the eyes of others. So they're not really, they don't really care about the information or what you're saying. Yeah, they they're very Machiavellian when it comes to actually arguing with a person or debating a person. And this, I would say, goes for most women. I would say this goes for like 85 to 90% of women. No, I'd go even higher. I'd go like 95%. Even the well-intended women, because, like, I've just had too many conversations with women about their nature, about men, about like a lot of different things, and I've noticed they use the same tricks and they don't even realize it. It's kind of sad. Like, they'll start talking about your potency, about how, like, maybe you're inadequate and maybe women don't like you and stuff like that. They go to ad hominem attacks. They start to attack your character. They start to they'll shame you. They use shaming language. The way that women argue is essentially the way that a child, um, like, look at how a child tries to get what they want, and look at the techniques that a child uses. It's the same thing. It's very egoic and emotional. It's not really centered in logic. And the reason why you should never debate or talk, I did a video on this. The reason why you should never debate or try to reason with, and seriously, like, even the women, you'll see them in comment sections on videos regarding men's issues and stuff like that. Do not debate women. Um, they're not they're not talking to you. They're trying to please the people. They're trying to show the people around you that you have low status. So the things that they do when they talk to you, it has nothing to do with the information you're speaking about. They're trying to they're trying to create the illusion that what they're saying has more importance, has more significance. It's not hard to believe that they do this stuff, because when you think about it, even like the makeup, you can just go, to that in, with yourself. I mean, just understand, never debate them, never try to, because you're operating with logic. When a man talks to a man, you can find a logical end to the conversation, and you can hold the man accountable. You cannot hold a woman accountable. And when it's a group of women, oh, worse, they're gonna drag you through the mud. And it has nothing to do with your lack of intelligence. It's just, women are just emotionally abusive creatures, and no one holds them accountable. Now, when you actually have a decent enough group of people, like, women will, they will respond to the I want to say these two things before I leave, by the way. And then I'll make, by the way, I'm going to make little small videos again just in the future. But women, they don't feel remorse for being emotional bullies, but they are naturally emotionally abusive. It's just by nature. I think they learn by having a father to not do this. Like, a masculine father teaches women to be less emotionally abusive. Uh, Now, there are evolutionary reasons for them being like this, but we used to teach women, through our strong fathers used to actually teach women to be accountable. Some of them, they had fathers that would hold them accountable for their actions, and those women were forced to learn to treat people well, especially if they came in, like, they grew up in a poor income family and the father was like the head of household. Um, the women were forced to learn to be decent. They couldn't just go off and things like that. Same with the sons. The sons were forced to listen because the dad could basically strong arm both of them. Um, and the mom pretty much, she deferred to the father, like, listen to your father. Your father's, when your father gets home, this is that. And that was the older paradigm. It's changing now. Now it's listen to your mother. And now we can kind of see the shift, and where everything's twisting and turning to, going to hell. Um, but women, the emotional abuse that they're used to carrying out with just people, without people protesting and stuff like that. Um, that's kind of what's creating the emotional instability in a lot of men, and just, um, even in politics and stuff like that, it's causing a lot of issues. uh, I don't think I was gonna say much more. Now, the people who are listening to me or who are gonna watch this, you're gonna think, oh, this guy, he's misogynistic. I wanted to explain, I guess this is where I'll stop. I want to explain what misogyny actually is. So I talked about this in the video. Misogyny, what it actually is, it's resentment for behavior that goes unpunished and goes unseen. And the resentment eventually does turn into hatred. It can turn into hatred. Um, you see this same kind of resentment coming from, like, a politician who never gets called out on their poor policies. You see this same resentment from people who eventually start wars with countries or places where people are being treated terribly, and the, there there's a kind of a false pretense, and they're kind of lifting up the leader as if the leader is this example of great virtue. Essentially, hypocrisy can kind of lead to this abject hatred, abject resentment, and women uh, are master hypocrites. Um, Women But here's the thing: their hypocrisy is sanctioned by entire nations, by entire groups, entire tribes. Um, I think that's what creates the resentment. Now, when they claim that guys are misogynists and stuff, like they're like, "Oh, you're a misogynist," what they're actually doing is quite sinister because um, it's similar to what certain powers that be are doing when they claim that someone is anti-Semitic. It's the same thing. What they're doing is they're putting you on the defensive because they know that what they're doing is something worthy of hatred. They know, women know that the way that they act, at least the Western women, the modern woman, she knows that what she's doing is worthy of hatred, and it's worthy. It's that she's not worthy of good treatment, and she should be treated terribly. But by saying you're misogynist and oh you're misogynist and you hate women and stuff like that, by doing that, it absolves her of the guilt of in my direction. That sounds like a good video one of these days. Yeah. 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 Uh, yeah. But what I was saying about women, I mean, that's pretty much what I want to round up on the misogyny thing, is that um, women are hypocrites, but we all support their hypocrisy, and the men who can see this and who are at the what they're at the end of it where they don't get anything, they just pull the lowest smallest straw. Those men become resentful and angry, and the women call them uh, misogynists in order to counteract the truth that they actually know that those men can see. It's almost like a way of gaslighting those men by making them get defensive. For the men end up trying to prove that they're not misogynists, but the sad thing is when they're trying to prove that they're not misogynist, they forget the very reason why they were even feeling a certain way about the woman. So um, it's a very neat trick that people do. It's not just women that do this, by the way. You get people, fat shame, talking about, you go to malls and you see models that are really large. You see like the mannequins and stuff like that. You get the 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 alphabet mafia or the rainbow mafia. They utilize the same techniques. What do they call it? Was it transphobe? They use, what is the other one? The homophobe thing. All of that stuff. The point of it is it's the exact same mechanism, and even in with the with the with that group, which I don't even know if I could say that on YouTube. Um, with the black group, they do the same thing. They use the racism word, and that word. The whole point of it is the same thing to gaslight you and to do all these other things. Same thing. Um, the mechanisms they look different. The On the outside it looks different, but the mechanism, the mechanics is the same. If they can get you defensive, they can get you to the point where you forget what you're actually doing because you're trying to defend yourself. You're trying so hard to defend yourself, you forget you forget what you're even fighting for. You forget that what you're saying is valid, and they gaslight you into to the point where you think that what you're saying, like, you don't even realize what you're saying is valid anymore, and you're just kind of in an illusion. Yeah. Uh, if you're intelligent enough to see through it all, you realize that whenever they claim that you're something, some of the things you can do, like agree and amplify. Like you kind of have to. It's kind of what I was saying earlier in this stream with how I think incels should treat people and how they're speaking about it. You see the videos on like there's this one guy Derek online on one of his videos or on Jubilee. You can look it up on YouTube where they're just trashing this dude in the comment section and saying, "Oh, he's awful and women don't like him." Stop it. That's losing me. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up before I use all the the data on this phone. So yeah, pretty much. What is you saying? Apparently, I've internalized bullets. Probably Miss Sanders. Well, do you like people who hurt you? Maybe I'll go home. Maybe if I go home, maybe he's asleep or something like that. I can sit on the back porch and keep talking. But I don't really have much to talk about. I'd like to get one of y'all on and just chat. We'll see if it's possible. I'm pretty much done with what I need to say though. Like the big thing was that I covered incels. I covered male mentors. Male mentors are starting to become a big thing. They're starting to pop up. You have like people like Rom Wills. You have Rollo Tomasi. You have in the MGTOW community. You used to have TFM. You had Hammerhand, which I know Bullets. I know you're beef with them, but like at the end of the day, I don't get it. I don't get with beef. I just name the people who are talking about the issues. There's um, there's a couple of other guys, in the MGTOW community, but then there's a lot of red pill content creators like AMS. He's doing a lot of big stuff. Um, AMS, you have, it's too much to count actually, but the older guys who are in this, who are actually helping guys, they're doing a lot of good. I think at least bringing this stuff out. Now the guys who are starting to infight with other guys, it's like stop, right? Like I understand it, but like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'll say that. That I think that is the attitude that we kind of have to have now. Um, Maybe I'm wrong, but we can't keep fighting with each other. We have to actually, like, if a person is showing that they are against uh, womenism and these groups that are wreaking havoc on Western society, on the economy, on men, stuff like that, and on women without them knowing it, then I'm cool with them. Oh yeah, it's whatever. Um, yeah. Um, and I don't know the specifics of y'all's beef. It has nothing to do with me, but I think even Sandman's also, now his stuff is really dark, but he's also very logical in how he presents his information. And I think videos like his are going to revolutionize a lot of thought processing for the average guy and how he deals with women. Now listen, women did not get to where they are now by just you know, doing the same things. They adapt just like guys adapt. But right now, we're in a situation where guys are about to adapt in a very harsh way, where women are going to have to adapt in a very interesting way. But we talk about that. We talk about the chameleon and stuff like that. Uh, Women don't take information seriously until it comes from another woman or until it comes from a person who has high status. I think that's the very mechanism that makes them easily controlled, is that they don't take information from the average man very well. That man has to have high level. Now look at people like Jordan Peterson. right? Has a lot of very high social status, very prestigious. He's a clinical psychologist. He's decorated in a lot of ways. He has a lot of uh, um, he has a very large following. Women take what he's saying very serious, and he's not saying a lot of crazy stuff. He's saying the same stuff that other men have said. There's a video where he's talking about how the higher a woman goes up in education, the lower the population goes, and the lower the birth rates. Right? There were men in MGTOW talking about the same stuff he's talking about, like what 10 years ago, like a whole decade ago, right? But it's more pertinent now to the average woman, is more palatable to the mainstream because of his status, because of who he is. That's just how a lot of people are. That's how people, normies, people who just don't really use their brain, not just women, because men can be like this too. But and you kind of pick up on who they are, because when you get in conversations and debates with them, they'll ask you, they use this logical fallacy where, because you don't have a particular set of information, or because you don't have a certain credibility, they reject your information. It's like, oh well, do you have a doctorate? Did you go to school? Well, where are you getting that from? What article did that come from? Oh really? Well, where's the study? Show me the study. Show me the study. Show me what you're saying. Stuff like that. Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to check your content, Bullets. Your old Intel say is the same thing they've been saying for years now. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's kind of true. Bullets, I can see that. Man, yeah. This went better than I thought it was gonna go. I thought the phone actually held up pretty well. This was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. How many videos do you need to watch before you figure out how they go? It's trauma. A lot of and they feel alone. They don't really have a large friend group. And I think you mix that in with realizing a lot of dark stuff very quickly, it turns into a situation of guys want to cope with the situation together. Now, if you had groups where men could actually, like, males don't have, here's the thing, Bullets, like, the average, like, males don't have their own spaces anymore. Look at the gym. You go to the gym, what do you see? You see a bunch of thoughts dressed up in tight clothes. Like, women they've invaded essentially every male space, and they've made it about themselves, about getting attention. So unless we can start getting areas where males and that's another thing that will create a situation where guys won't end up self-deleting, but it also creates a situation where men can spread knowledge. Red pill knowledge is where, like, the online space is pretty much the only male space left. That's sorry, that's kind of what happened. Women invaded male spaces, and there's no place for a man to feel masculine anymore. Even in the military, there's not really a lot of ways for a man to set himself apart in society anymore. All right, cool. The Sunday stream, cool. Holy shit, I didn't think it was that bad, G. The men can see it. The intelligent ones, the the intelligent women can see it, but then the average man and the average woman can't see it, and the average woman especially can't see it, and is largely the cause of it. Uh, yes, because when you think about mating and reproduction, men would do it no problem, but the issue is the social engineers who are trying to control the population. They know that women are idiots as a group. and they know that women just follow trends and their followers, and they don't really mate with people long term until the men have higher socioeconomic status in them. And the average man, his ability to reproduce with a woman is kind of being controlled. It's controlled. It's not an accident that this stuff is happening. So the average guy, he's trying to get enough wealth and stat. It's funny because women don't even realize. Yeah, like women don't even realize. Like they think that they're going out and making money, and that self pursuit is exactly what men are doing. That men are just making money to get laid. And the average man, he's trying to get enough wealth and status to become self sufficient. They're doing that in order to build families. Hopefully, this thing gives enough signal. I'm gonna try to wrap this up. So I told this one chick, I'm like, no, men are going out in society to I'll do a video on this actually. Women are they think that men are going out and making money just for selfish reasons, but most of them, their selfishness extends to the woman and the children and the family. Men are going out to make money so that women will perceive them as valuable enough so that they can sleep with a woman, have children, and start a legacy. Women are going out to make money just to make money, just for themselves, not to build family, but literally just to make money. It's literally purely selfish, just for themselves. It's crazy, right? When you really realize that, then you start to realize just how selfish the average woman is, and you realize that they're not really. I don't know. It's just kind of sad because they were thinking that men had all the power because the men had to work a terrible corporate, crappy corporate job, right? But then they're like, I want to be a tax slave too. And then they go and work, right? But then they realize it's horrible. But by the time they realize it's horrible, guess what? They have the guy's ability. They cut the guy's ability to make money for them in half. So then the guy's social value is cut in half. And so he's kind of like floundering around trying to figure out how to gain enough wealth to get this broad's attention. Meanwhile, the broad's complaining that she's got a pay gap, right? Like, I got a pay gap. But then the guy is secretly thinking, well, you kind of ruined my ability to to get attention. So I'm alone with my hand, right? It's a really, when you think about this stuff, it's really comedic. Like our lives and what's happening. Like we're in a tragic comedy. Um, it's a divine tragic comedy. Like guys are running around trying to figure out how to gain enough money to get laid, and women are trying to figure out how to get as much money and power as possible. It's a really strange thing that's happening. And then they're complaining about not being able to find men while taking the men's jobs to begin with. Oh man. It's hilarious. You can't make this stuff up. Like in a way, like the aliens who are watching this stuff are probably having the time of their lives. They're probably sitting back and just looking at us like, wow, it's like I don't even have to actually watch galactic television. Like this is their galactic television, just watching us. It's like they get an episode everywhere they go. It's like, oh, okay, she called child support on her husband. Oh, they went to court. Oh, okay, he lost his kids. Oh, this is great. How is this even happening? All right, y'all. I'm gonna read the rest of these comments and then I'm gonna call it a day. It was nice. Thanks for coming on. Thanks, GM, for the getting the word out. Let's see what's going on. Hey, I hope I can make your stream, bullets. That'd be cool. Let's see. All I'm doing is something new. Come to my stream. Have a good night. I see. Absolutely. It was you're blackety black black today. All the older comments. All right. All right, y'all. That's pretty much it. I'm done. I'm at a gas station. Maybe I'll go in and get something to drink and head back home. I wanted to play video games, but I probably just watch a couple of movies and fall asleep. I will be making new stuff, so don't be a stranger. I'm gonna make new stuff pretty soon. Now, when I make the little short 5-minute videos, I'm not doing a live stream, and I'll you'll know because I'll have like discussion, or I'll have like a stream. Like I'll literally put the words, so that'll be like the sign that I'm actually doing a stream where I talk to people and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, I don't know if you're sub to me. I don't know if I can get notifications or something. Uh, oh, you are sub. Okay. How do I get like a reminder for your stream or something? Yeah, GM, we're gonna have to do some collabs. I'm gonna try to start doing some collabs with other. I think I'm gonna do another one with RAD in the future. Um, I'm gonna do a collab with him and probably some others. I was supposed to do one with Mama Rada. I don't know if she's on anymore. I haven't seen her content in a while. There's a couple others I want to do it with. It'd be cool to get Pop on. Terrence Pop. He did a stream with RAD, and that was pretty cool. I wonder what he's doing right now. That guy's, by the way, in terms of red pill knowledge, like especially since he's like prior military and stuff, like having him in this community is like a blessing because like he sees like we're talking about red pill information, seeing like the dark aspects of female nature. He's like guys like him who are in the military and who are also red pill. He's seen aspects of the red pill that kind of like culminates like the darker aspects of humanity, right? Guys like Terrence Pop. Um, oh, I got you. Yeah, it sounds smart. I'll stay where I am for now. Like, if you have like, I was assuming. Well, actually, I don't know. I guess you guys can just reach out. Um, I'll put my. I don't know if I can. I can't do private chat because you're not in the thingamajigger. So I actually have my email is technically on my channel. So just go to my channel, go to the about, and you can see my email. Just email me stuff. Email me the Discord and whatever, and I will see it because I check my email. Anyway, y'all, I'm gonna head out. This was pretty cool. I'm actually really glad I did this. I was supposed to work out today. I might do a little bit, but can't really do a lot because it's too late. All right, let me stop the camera. All right, y'all, be easy. I'm gone.